afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. We've all been anticipating the arrival of spring and everything it brings with it, including warmer temperatures and more daylight. But spring is also an important time of year to be reminded of safety, particularly on the road, and especially when it comes to cars and horses. My guests this afternoon are well-versed in safety issues. Joining me are UVM equine specialist Betsy Green and professional horse trainer Ben Wallace. Ben is the owner of Arrowhead Horsemanship in Shannock, Rhode Island. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's talk a little bit about your business in Rhode Island, Ben.
Well, thank you for having me. Predominantly my business in Rhode Island is starting colts and working with horses who have developed behavioral problems, and it really all comes down to foundation, whether I'm building a foundation with a young horse who's never been ridden before, or whether I'm rebuilding a foundation with a horse who's developed some difficulties.
What are some of the things that are involved in that foundation?
Typically I'm going to start on the ground. I want to control the horse's feet on the ground and get them to think and pay attention to me, and then I'm going to build their confidence about accepting a rider, accepting a saddle, being ridden around, working through the walk, trot, canter, developing a little bit of body control, being able to move the shoulders and the hindquarters, and also just working on having good steering, a good stop, some obstacles, things like that. So.
And what people should realize too is once this work is done, it doesn't necessarily mean it stays that way.
Exactly. It takes maintenance to do things, you know, to upkeep your horse.
Now, Betsy, you've been with us before, obviously, to discuss safety, and you produced an award-winning public service announcement on horse and driver safety. Tell us a little bit about some of the key points to that.
Yeah, when we put that PSA together, the key things were telling the horse and rider and the driver that they both had responsibility. The law favors the horse because the horse is the least controllable or predictable, but the motorist should be watching the rider for signals, watching if the horse is nervous, slowing down, certainly not honking their horns or speeding by, and giving room. And the rider, of course, has to tell the driver, whether it's with hand signals or things like that, to be safe,
slow down,
yeah, and also ride on the correct side of the road, the right side, and in proper, not 2 or 3 abreast.
Right, single line in with traffic.
Yes.
And so, Ben, it's not just motorized vehicles, of course, that can scare a horse. Pretty much anything.
Oh, absolutely. Despite their size, a lot of people think most horses should be brave about things because they're such large animals, but for the most part, they're suspicious, being prey animals, so everything's kind of guilty until proven innocent with them.
As far as, I mean, even people walking past, I know I had an issue, was fine with cars, but a jogger came running at the horse, you know, running down the road, and the horse freaked out because here's someone chasing them.
Yes, absolutely. Anything that's approaching them is immediately they're suspicious of, and they're a little bit worried, and if they don't have a chance to think and they start just reacting, then a rider can get into trouble pretty quickly.
Well, and even bicyclists that's on the same trail that's trying to be nice, and so they stop and they're set back off quietly, and then all of a sudden your horse comes upon them and sees them. They were trying to do the right thing, but they need to speak to the rider and say, hello, I'm here, so that they don't spook the rider as well.
Right, and of course dogs coming out from all angles is not a good thing either. And so how can people avoid spooking horses further? I mean, we talked about giving them their space. If they're sharing a trail, give way to the horse.
Yeah, and the horse person can be doing a lot of things to get their animals used to those things prior to actually getting out on the trail, because if you find it the first time when you're a couple miles out on the trail, something happens, you'll have a long walk catching and then getting home.
If you can catch.
If you can catch them, yes.
Now, no, Ben, you brought some pictures that you want to talk about?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I'll do to prepare horses is work on group exercises and things like that, and this first picture is of working on passing and being able to be in, you know, anywhere in that line. Betsy just mentioned a single file line. Many horses either want to be at the front of the line, the back of the line, or somewhere in between, where I want to work on just walk-trot transitions and being able to push a horse up to the front of the line and be in the back of the line. This next picture is of just a horse having to stand still while a lot of other horses travel around them. When horses get into a herd or get into a group, they kind of get that group mentality where they need to be doing what the other horses are doing. And I want to work hard to kind of just discourage that a little bit and just be able to work with my horse individually.
Because tell us what can happen otherwise. If you're with one horse and it takes off, everybody follows.
Everybody will start to follow and everybody will start running off. And again, too, this last picture is just of one horse separating out of that group. And that's a big part of one of the things that I used to do is visit trail ride associations, and people would ask different questions about problems that they had. And one of them was, well, my horse has trouble separating from the group. So I want to work on that kind of in a more controlled setting with a group that's going to pay attention, kind of help each other out if someone gets into trouble before I need to.
And why would a horse have a problem with that?
Well, they're herd animals, and they always kind of work towards being in that herd and trying to stay together and look out for one another. So when they're in that herd, sometimes they'll pay a little bit less attention to the rider and feel a little safer with those other horses, and trying to pull them out of that situation can be difficult at times.
Mm-hmm. And now, with the help of each of you, we've created a list of tips that individuals on horseback ought to keep in mind. And I think one of the most important ones is make sure that your horse is thinking and that you have their attention. What does that mean?
Well, exactly what he was referring to there. They would be happy to do what everyone else is doing, but you have to have your horse paying attention to you. So if you have to stop or move or go away from the crowd or be the leader and stop so that if something's happening in front, that everybody doesn't pile up or try to keep going and cause some serious accident.
Mm-hmm. And so your next tip is about what to do before you hit the trails?
Yes, I think there's a lot of preparation that riders should do before they ever get out on the trails. I've seen a lot of riders who are riding kind of very green-broke horses, and they immediately want to go get out on the trails, and that's just not a safe way to do things. I think it's a rider's responsibility to really prepare their horses for anything that they might encounter, because a lot of times you're not sure what's going to happen. You know, you don't know if there's going to be a biker or a loose dog or something like that, but at the same time, you know, it's a big world out there, so you have to make sure your horse is ready. You can't try and make everything ready for your horse. So
you can do all the practicing that you want in a ring situation, but when push comes to shove, you're really out there.
Yeah, and there's just so many other things. I think our next tip we had maintaining I'm trying to remember which ones. There we go. Whether you're in the arena or on the trail, mm-hmm. expect the same behavior. And we as humans tend to think, okay, it's going to be right, but we don't put the work behind it. We don't think about the fact that it's a new environment for the horse, and they're looking at everything as a prey animal. So all their training's the software on them. And sometimes that software crashes and the hard drive picks up, which is the prey animal that says either run or fight, which is usually run.
Right. And also, too, you have to realize that you're going to encounter people on trails that know nothing about horses and have no concept of, I remember once I was riding on a trail and a person had a chair, folding chair, and they just threw it over their shoulder and tried to walk past us on this trail. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be an incident.
Yeah.
Because they're big, and even if they move over, they could easily step on someone or knock somebody over very innocently.
Yes. Yeah.
So people need to be aware of that. Let's see, what's our next tip? We've got another one here that we want to, safe following distance.
Yes, a safe following distance between horses can really kind of prevent a lot of headaches. Especially if you know you have a horse that's a little cranky around other horses or tries to drive other horses outside of their space. You want to maintain what's called about a horse length, so a minimum of 8 feet, about 8 to 10 feet between horses at all times. Even though you're out on the trail and you want to have just a fun, relaxed time, I think it's important to be pretty vigilant about this because, as I said, you don't want another horse getting kicked and you don't want to have to ride through anything like that.
And one tip on that is if you look between your horse's ears, you should be able to see at least the hocks, if not the feet of the horse in front of you, and that kind of gives you a perspective on how far you are away from him.
Even if your horse wants to be right up against...
Oh, head to tail, you see mm-hmm. that, and that's just, there's no room for connection or correction or avoidance when that happens. And then the other thing, the rider can help control the horse just by not overthinking, remaining calm and patient when they're working on the trail, because, and you've been on your horse and you see that trash can with the flag or that chair you're talking about, mm-hmm. you tense up,
like,
and then suddenly here it comes, and then your horse is saying, oh my gosh, my rider's tensed up, she must be scared, I should be really scared. And so you can actually do the head games with yourself and deep breathing to calm rather than expect something bad.
I used to sing the ABCs.
Yeah, absolutely, whatever it takes. A lot of times if I get a little worried about something, I kind of think about, a song that I was listening to, or when I'm riding in an arena, I'll play the radio, and, that'll help me relax too. And then I think the final tip that we have is to enjoy yourself. This is supposed to be a relaxing, fun time. It's recreational for people. If you're not enjoying yourself, if you feel like you're frustrated all the time or you're really worried and it's nerve-wracking for you, then it's a good idea to maybe go back in the arena, spend some more time there, work on obstacles, work on getting your horses confident and thinking, and maybe even look into taking some lessons somewhere to kind of bring your confidence up. That way you're having fun when you're out on the trails.
Is there one thing that you see with horses that come back to you for sort of retuning, or an owner who says, I can't handle this, or this is a problem? Is there one common problem that you encounter?
The thinking and the attention are the two biggest things for me. I really feel that if you have your horse thinking and paying attention to you, then anything that you ask for is pretty easy. But if you don't have that attention, it doesn't matter what you're asking for because your horse isn't paying attention. And then at the same time too, if your horse isn't thinking and he's just reacting, then he's not really learning anything. So.
And how do you get your horse to think about what you're doing?
Controlling the feet. A part of that foundation is being able to move the shoulders, move the hindquarters, work on things like circles and serpentines, which is an S shape over and over again. The more I can control my horse's feet, the more I can work on their mind, get them thinking and focused on what we're doing.
But some of those things that you might do is keep it busy doing things so it has to pay attention to you, instead of, if you're doing the same circle and circle and circle, it's like, yeah, I know this gig, I can look everywhere else.
Absolutely. One of the things that I'll tell people is if you don't keep their feet busy, then they're going to keep you busy. So.
And that's not a good thing.
Exactly.
And I suppose, too, if you're bored going around in circles, you can just imagine the horse must be bored as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and one of the other things that I would say is you go out on these trails, especially when you're first learning, or your horse or whatever, know who you're going with. Go with people that are very competent, confident, and also aware and willing to know that you're new and can work with you. Because, sometimes you go on the big giant trail rides, you don't always know who you're going to be with. They may or may not act predictable or sane.
Especially at the beginning of the season, where you might not be in the greatest shape, your horse might not be in the greatest shape.
Yeah.
Don't overdo it.
Yeah, and get yourself into as much of a controlled situation so that you can enjoy yourself.
And so also, too, we mentioned this earlier, too, you have to be able to work independent of the group.
Yes, definitely. Because there are going to be times when you have to get away from the group, whether you need to take a break or something like that. You want to step down off your horse. You don't want your horse trying to drag back to that group. Or if you need to finish riding early and go back to your trailer early, you don't want it to be a constant fight. You don't want your horse to get more nervous as they have to leave that herd or that group. And a big part of that is getting a group together and working on it in a safe environment. Because, again, I always tell people, if you haven't worked on it before you need it, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble when you find out that you actually need it. So.
Right.
Yeah, we actually had him do a session on that at Everything Equine and Canine this past. It was great because he had folks that had no idea what they were getting into. They were volunteer demo riders, and I didn't see you put them through all the paces, but you did some tarp work and some other stuff. Yeah,
I think with group exercises, which is something that I started doing once I spoke to some of the trail ride associations and stuff, and they had all these questions about how to work in a group, and also setting up clinics and trying to, as we were talking about earlier, keep it interesting for horses and riders. I started to do these group exercises, and I think it's a great way, because for a lot of people, riding is social too, that your friends ride and things like that. So it's a great way to, using a group setting, improve everybody's horsemanship and just make sure that everybody's skills are getting better and better. Some of the things that we'll do, like musical tarps, kind of like musical chairs, except for with tarps. And with that game, it's pretty fun too, because you can even get more and more picky about things and say, okay, just front feet on the tarp this time, or just hind feet on the tarp. And then some of those passing drills that we saw pictures of earlier. So.
And also, too, it's important to recognize what your horse is doing and the signals that they're sending you when you're out on the trail.
Well, and those things actually helps other people learn to pay attention to the group around them, too, and that's important.
Okay. Before we run out of time, can you share with our viewers how they can learn more about your work?
Yes, they can contact me through the website. I think that would be the best way to go. It's www.arrowheadhorsemanship.com, and that'll have my email and my phone number on the site. And I'm not usually near a phone because I don't like to carry it around when I'm riding. But if you give me a call or send me an email, I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
And it is important, if you are having issues, to get help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before something major happens.
Right, and also, if you are going to be out on the road, pay attention, if you're a rider, to the rules, and pay attention if you're driving, to slow down and give plenty of room for horses.
great advice.
Yeah. Thanks for
Absolutely.
being with us today. Thank you.
you
Nice
so
to
much.
meet you. That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.